Hello, my name is Debbie. I'm Owlandgator Stitcher. Welcome to Flosstube 73. Today is Thursday, March 27th, 2024. This is a video, usually about cross stitch, sometimes about what I'm watching and life thrown in. If you are a new viewer, welcome. I hope you like what you see. And if you do, I would appreciate it if you clicked on that subscribe button. And to my returning viewers, thank you so much for coming back and all of your comments. I just love interacting with the cross stitch community. One question before we start. Someone commented on one of my videos that they were having difficulty hearing me. And I'm just curious if anyone else is having that problem. I've tried to turn up my volume a little bit. I don't do this on a microphone. I'm just doing it on my tablet. And so if I need to make some changes, let me know if you're having difficulties hearing me. I know personally I have a very loud voice, so I don't think it's my voice, but there certainly can be a lot of ambient noise in my room. There's a truck beeping across the street right now for reasons that are not clear. I've got a cat in the room, so who knows what she's going to want to be doing. She seems to be settled right now, but we'll see what happens. But anyhow, just let me know. But with that, I think I am just going to jump into the stitching. I'll put what I'm reading and watching and what's going on in my life, such as it is, at the end of the video. So I have a very exciting, it's not a finish, but we're getting really close. And so I'm going to start off showing you that. And that is Portrait of Veronica by Mirabilia. So there she is. She is absolutely beautiful. I am so happy with her. So I know I showed in the last video and I said I only have a little bit left. And 4,000 stitches later, I finished all the cross stitches. So I was working down in this part of her dress. And for those of you who are not familiar with Mirabilia's, they're actually, in terms of the cross stitching, not that hard. The hardest part is actually reading the pattern because they're paper patterns and they're a bit awkward. But I make a working copy, and once I get past where I might have multiple pages, once I get past all of that, it's really not that hard to do. And so I've now done all the cross stitches. I have done all the krynic, which there's not a huge amount of krynic. It's just these sort of decorations. There's sort of a charcoal gray in her dress, and a little bit in this piece of furniture. So what I have to move on to is there's more back stitching. There's just like some texture in the dress. Not a huge amount of back stitching left. I already did everything in her face and up here and in this sort of loopy part, lacy part on her dress. But I have to do the beads. And I purchased this, when I purchased this at Brick City years ago, they had a model up there, which obviously helped inspire me to choose this piece. And the shop owner said, just so you're aware, there are over 1,200 beads in this piece. So obviously, like you can see in the bodice, there'll be beads. Up here in her headpiece, there's like a whole necklace that is coming down. That's sort of an emptiness here. She's got a big old ring. And then going around all the dark parts of the dress, there's basically a bead everywhere. So it's not hard beading. Once I get out of this part, which will be quite dense, this part isn't going to be hard. It's just going to be time consuming. I also have to put this on scroll rods. Obviously I use Q-snaps most of the time. My preference is to mash up Q-snaps and do 8x11s, and that won't work here because I don't want to crush the beads on the Q-snaps. I do have some scroll rods. I have two kinds. I have, I think it's Arabesca, is that what it's called? And I also have roller frame. I can't remember. But I just need to experiment. Obviously I need to cut down the fabric. It's way too long. This was a fat half. And obviously the sides can be trimmed as well to fit on the scroll rods. She is wide, but she's not as wide as, if I leave a 3-inch margin, I should have my scroll rods, because I knew this was going to be the first thing I was going to bead that needed scroll rods. And so I bought ones that were longer, so I'd hope to fit her. So I'm very excited. I am going to be working on this in April because I really, really would like to get this done. This actually would be my first mirror finish. I have a number of mirrors on the go, but this one, because it was my first mirror, my oldest mirror, everything else, I really wanted to focus on it. And the colors in this are just stunning. So I'm really happy to have made some great progress on this. So that is Portrait of Veronica. And I was really excited. I was on a Stitchy Zoom call when I finished that part. So I got to show everyone. That was a lot of fun. All right, so the next piece I worked on was my chatelaine. So this, I always get the words mixed up. Holland Springtime Garden Mandala from Chatelaine. There it is. You can see the various motifs in there. I pulled this one out on last Friday because Dina half stitch cross stitch and a group of people with her were going to work. I believe most of them were working in Alpine Garden, but she said, if you're working on a chatelaine or want to start a chatelaine, jump in and join us. So I did that. I didn't have a lot of stitching time that day. So I only got about 300 stitches in, and I am still very early on. So it's the center of the center motif. But I have all of the materials I need. I am not using the MPI. I'm just using regular DMC for that. As far as I'm aware, there's not really any variegation in MPI, and the DMC works fine for me. I do have the Glorianas and the Dinky dyes and all the other silks and the Petite Treasure Braid that I need, and the beads whenever I get to them. I did manage to put in some Petite Treasure Braid, but you can't really see it in this lighting, the sparkle of it. Which actually I think was my first time working with Petite Treasure Braid. I've obviously used a lot of Krynic. I've used their Silk Lame from Rainbow Gallery, but I've never actually used their Petite Treasure Braid. So I was happy to have a chance to try that material. So I got 300 stitches and then I had to stop. So I was working on some of this blue, which is why it looks a little bit like uneven down here, because I wasn't able to finish that. I actually have a dangling thread. This is a 32 count even weave. I don't know who the dyer is. I got it cut to size at Brick City. And unfortunately, the way that they label their fabrics, it's not always clear. Like, it's on the bolt with initials, and they don't always transfer that information to the tag they give you. So I don't know who the dyer is for this, but it's a pretty light blue. All right, so the next piece that I am working on is Old World Map. This is from Artisy. This is the large version. I think they have like a regular size, a large, and they might even have an extra large. I chose to do the large. This is my oldest project, and I really would love to give it more love, but just given the way I'm working this year, it's not getting enough. But here's the whole thing here. And so what I did this time, I really want to get across the top. So basically, I was starting to pick colors that were sort of the ninja stitches sort of over here. And then as I would find them, they would then come over here because this is basically the next page. I do have this in Pattern Keeper, but I'm using the 8.5 by 11 Q-snap now for this. And it's just easier if I think about, as I'm working something, okay, finish this page. Now, obviously, if something goes on to the next page, I will do it. That's not an issue for me. And I think I counted, well, not counted, but from here, if I looked correctly in Pattern Keeper, there's only about 30 more rows. And when I mean columns, individual columns, not chunky blocks. So I'm getting very close to the edge over here. And I think this is actually a different, the page break for this page is somewhere here. But I had thread on my needle, so I just kept going. I filled in some of this, I don't even know what it is, an urn or something that's fallen over. So enjoying working on that. And I'm thinking about next year, how can I incorporate some of these projects more that I really want to get more love on? Not that I don't want to give all my projects love, but that is my oldest one. I started it on Christmas Day in 2019, which makes it over 5 years old now, and I'm about 22%. I'm just going to jump in and explain a little bit for those of you who don't watch me on a regular basis. A couple of years ago, for every project I had ongoing at the time, I had goals, and I set a goal for everything. And I wasn't at the beginning really saying, okay, I'm going to achieve the goals. I'm just going to work to that goal. And if I want to pick up the project again later, even though I've hit the goal, I can. And that worked really great in 2023. And then in 2024, I got very distracted and I had a couple of new starts and finishes. And those were a lot of fun and I'm glad I did it, but I didn't really focus on my goals. And so this year, I don't think I'm going to hit all my goals. I'm sort of realizing that the projects that I have left, they have a lot left in them, and trying to, say I'll do 4 a month and then I'll get them all done this year. Some of them need 5 or 6,000 more stitches. And while I can certainly do that much in a month, to try and then pick up 4 of those, that could be over 20,000 stitches. And that's before everything else I want to work on. So I'm not sure it's feasible, or we'll see where we are. But I did tackle some goals. And that one, certainly, I haven't even hit that goal. I still estimate on that one I need about 5,500 or 6,000 stitches to get there. So it still needs more. But the next one, this was a whip go call, and I hit my goal. So this is Tug of War from Mystic Stitch. And my goal was, this is page 2 somewhere here, and then also this clothespin. And the clothespin does go down to the page below. I only have this in a paper pattern, so it's very slow going. And the clothespin was very confetti heavy. So here's everything. And I am really happy with the way this is coming out. Mystic Stitch is, the company no longer exists, so I can't get a paper pattern even if I wanted it. Another company has charted this, but the charting would be different. So basically what I did this is down here, the little sparrow is pulling at a thread there. So that was the very, very bottom of page 2. So I just pulled some of those colors here and finished them, but then had to do a lot in that clothespin. And it is really, really looking good. As I know, I've stitched plenty of Mystic Stitch in the past, but it's just sort of confetti heavy. And because I don't have it in Pattern Keeper, I think I've done all of a certain symbol, and then I will go back and realize I, missed, one down here, and then I'll put that one in, and then later I'll realize I missed one over here or wherever it is. So it just takes time. And product will be worth it, but this one goes slowly. There's no question about it. Okay, so the next piece that I have was I'm also trying to touch in their birthday week whenever I have a project that has a birthday. And so this one had a birthday last week. This is Mother of Dragons, artwork by Alexandra Bach, artwork by Pain Free Crafts. This is another one. I only have a paper pattern. It is retired. I reached out to Pain Free Crafts. She said, unfortunately, they cannot sell me, give me, do whatever. The pattern, which I understand. It's my fault. I should have purchased it electronically when it was still available. So that's on me. And my goal on this one was to finish the dragon head. So, oops, sorry about that noise. I definitely had my needle. I have a metal bar here on my table, and somehow my needle is magnetically stuck to the bar there. I didn't want it to stay there because I was going to poke myself later. Anyhow, my goal was to get that dragon head done, which I did, and it looks great. This probably required about 1,500 stitches, but incredibly confetti heavy. On my crafting table, I probably had about 40 different colors of DMC out, and again, the same thing. I thought I would hit all of one color, and then I didn't. So, and then I also was getting really concerned because I couldn't figure out what was going on, because I had done some of the colors here and then come down here, and I thought this was part of the fire coming out of the dragon's mouth, and it was just looking odd. And then I realized this is the eye. So I went back and looked at the photo and realized this is his open mouth. And so once I did that, then I said, okay, do everything around his mouth so you can get better detail on that. And I think it looks really, really good. So I did achieve my goal on this, was to get it done, and it got worked on its birthday week. So I'm really happy about that. This is the wing of the dragon. So this one will go into a little bit of a resting period. If I have a good reason to pull it out, I will. But I'm going to probably focus on other things. All right. The next one was a whip go call, and I also needed to hit my goal on it. So I pulled it out, and here is In the Garden. This is from an old issue of Cross Stitch and Country Crafts. So my goal was to finish the top half. It's a little bit deceptive because the top half is not nearly as stitch heavy, so I'm not halfway done with this project, but here's where I am. So basically I had part of this purple flower done. I did this yellow butterfly. I did that orange butterfly down there. I did all the greenery here, finished off these flowers here, and then did a whole lot of back stitching. I mean, as it was the 90s, there was a lot of back stitching. Of course, it makes it look really, really good once it's done. But it's time consuming. The pattern is not terribly hard to read, and the back stitching sort of goes where you naturally think it goes. But it just, it takes time. So I sort of feel like this month motto is it just takes time. So that's where I am with that. Really pretty. And I hit my goal in case I didn't say that. Okay. And the next project I'm going to show you, which was my last active whip at the beginning of March, is White Owl by Artisy. I hit my goal on this a long time ago, but I do want, right now I'm in the mindset of I want to try and get a full coverage finish every year. And I started a bunch in 2020, and so I'm trying to knock off some of the smaller ones. So I am about, I think it's like 47% or so on this. So here's where I am. So this month I worked basically in this wing as well as some of the blue part, the sky down there. It is looking fabulous. I am so happy with this. So next month, well, obviously I will move over. Oops, you can't see that. Move over into this part, and that will start getting into the owl's face, the head. So really, really looking forward to that. Really excited about this one. It's coming out really well. And that is White Owl. And so I also, in addition, and that one I hit the goal a long time ago, but because I want to, the goal that I set in 2022, but because I want to finish this year, it's still getting a lot of love, even though I've checked off that. All right, so the last piece I have to show you is my new start for the month. Most months I want to start a new piece and get about 1,000 stitches in it. It's not the end of March yet, so this one will still get more love. So I haven't quite hit the 1,000, but I wanted to do my video today. So this is Disagree from Rebel Stitcher Designs, and I'm going to read it to you. We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and my right to exist. So given everything going on in the world right now, and certainly in my country, this really spoke to me, and I thought it was really important. If you're gonna, I'm gonna hold you for one moment because my cat is scratching at the door. Okay, I'm back. She gets a little claustrophobic. If that's the right word. Okay, so anyhow, this piece spoke to me, and so I really wanted to do it, and so it was a market piece. I placed a market order from Grand Stitchery. And normally I don't place pre-orders. I just sort of know everything can be available. I don't really want the cookbook. And so most other things you can, they're available aftermarket. And, if your favorite vendor doesn't have it, I'm sure your second favorite vendor would have it or whatever. So, but I really wanted this because I knew I was going to start this one, and I didn't want there to be any delay to say, okay, if I place my order right when everyone comes back from market, the market pre-orders would get first priority with mailing. So I also then had to go into my stash, and this is done monochromatically, although she has it, the floss does have lightly variegated, but I went into my stash to say, okay, what flosses do I have? And I'm doing 2 colors. So a few years ago, Sulky had a sale where basically you got, like, for a really great price, you could just order it online, and they claimed like they were cleaning out the warehouse and loose bobbins. I don't know how true that is, but it was a great price. So, but you didn't get to pick your colors. And so I picked these 2 variegations. Now, I originally picked this because I wanted to do the letters in blue. But when I actually stitched, the blue was much paler than I thought, and there was a purple in there. And so I picked a purple to do the letters. So I can show you what I have here so far. So here's where I am. So it's sort of funny because the colors in it are sort of like a peachy orange and a gray and a purple and a light blue, but all I see are gator colors. So I thought that was sort of funny that was certainly not my intention when I pulled this out, but that's what I got. And then the purple. The purple is not a perfect match to the variegation, but it still goes well with it. This is a 32 count linen, fabrics by Stephanie, Nantucket Sky. So I know Laura, Stitching by the Shore, raves about this. This is one of her favorite colors. So really excited that I finally had a chance to use it. And while I normally don't stitch on linen, this was a piece I showed you a few months ago. I got some really great deals on some Mirabilia patterns that have fabric tucked into it. I didn't necessarily like the way the person had matched the fabric with the pattern, so I sort of dekitted, if that's the right word, the fabric, and are using it for other things. And then the patterns, whenever I get around to them, if I get around to them, will get their own a different color. But here's where we are. So right now we can diss. So I think I'm going to write a little bit more so I'm not dissing people. So that's where I am with my new start. And that is all the stitching I did this month. So rather than touching a lot of projects, I touched a few projects, and things like White Owl and Portrait of Veronica got over 4,000 stitches each. And then others somewhere between 500 and 1,500 stitches to get what I needed to do. Okay, so that is all of the actual stitching I have to show you. I'm going to go and jump into my stitching plans. So I went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to do Springo. That is the brainchild of Carolyn Zook and Robin Baker, I think that's her name now. So Bird's Eye Stitches and C Zook Stitch, both on Flosstube. They have a Facebook group, and Springo is basically, it's a combination of a cross stick and a bingo. Lots of people are doing it, so I'm not going to get into a lot of details. And I went back and forth about, do I want to participate in this? And then I sort of took a look, like, what else do I want to achieve this month or in April? And I sort of came to the conclusion, I think I can make it work. And there are 35 boxes. So every number so you fill in your thing 35, but there's only 25 days. So every day that she calls a number, there will be something to stitch, but not every number on your bingo spreadsheet will be called. If I have to go back, I think we're only numbering 1 through 35. I don't think it's like 1 through 70 and whatever. I think it is just 1 through 35. But knowing that she's only going to call the numbers for 25 days, there are going to be 10 things on your bingo board, and you have to set your bingo board up ahead of time. You can't cheat and set it up halfway through the month and see all the other numbers that were already called. So I thought, okay, I can make it work. And because it's impossible to get a blackout, like, that sort of motivation doesn't exist for me. And especially as I get towards the end of the numbers, like if I see something isn't going to give me a bingo, I may or may not do it. We'll see. But one of my WIPGO, so not Springo, but WIPGO calls is Saga. Long Nog Samplers. I think this is a gorgeous one. I've been watching the progress of Andrew, the running stitcher. He is doing a fabulous job on his, and he's got a goal to finish it in 4 years. I don't have that goal. This is one that I started, I think, in 2023. So I don't have like something I want to hit this year. And as a result, it's not getting pulled out that much, even though I absolutely love it. So this is all I've done so far. So I am doing 4 colors. This is a navy. I believe it's 939. Here are the other colors I'm doing, and I am just doing like the arches. So I've marked off like each arch which color it is. So I don't even think I've written on here, but I've got this purple, this green, and this sort of orange. And so each arch, so the actual archways and the columns and everything will be done in the 939, and then the stuff within the arches will each be a different color. And I've got it mapped out. So this is 20 count. This is Grace Notes fabric, blueberry milkshake. That's the color. So obviously it is very pale, but it's even getting washed out more in this lighting. But that's where I am with Saga. So that's going to be both my WIPGO call, and for this it was like, normally for WIPGO it's like just work on it for a day. If I haven't, it's either put 1,000 stitches if I haven't hit the goal, and if I have hit the goal or there is no goal, it's just to work on it a day. But this one is going to be my S for Springo, so it means it might get more love than it normally would. All right, P, I'm not going to show it to you, but that's Portrait of Veronica. So that means like getting beading and stuff done, so that will be good. And that one way or another is going to get done in April. I mean, I say that. My scroll rods might not work. Lots of things might not, happen that make it sad that it doesn't work, but we're going to try really hard to get that done. All right, so the next one I'm working on, so R. So this, oops, I probably should need to open this up. This is Reading is Magical. This is from the World of Cross Stitching. And I am doing something very different with the colors. So my fabric is this kind of purpley pink, and it's not really showing. It looks like the letters are all blending into the fabric, but it's not in person. It says Reading is Magical. My goal was just to get the top half done. So there really is, this is a fat, I'm not even sure that this is a fat eighth, to be honest. It's a small piece of fabric. But my goal was to finish like the top. It's everything. There's that huge book at the bottom. It was to do everything except the book. This one is not hard. This is from Valkyrie Stitchworks. I don't think she's dying anymore. But I had made some mistakes and I had to do, some frogging. And so it just means it didn't get pulled out that much. But last time I worked on it, I know I sort of was feeling better about it. And so made a lot of good progress. So this will be my R because it's Reading is Magical. SPRI. Okay, so my next one is, this is a book from Doreen Jones called Iznik and Delft Pottery. Iznik is a town in Turkey, and they're famous for their pottery. And I think like the colors of this are absolutely stunningly beautiful. So this is the one that I'm doing. So the way that this book is set up, you could theoretically do a lot of mixing and matching. And so like doesn't have to be the center motif. There are other things this size that you could do in the center. Or you could choose to do, without the whole outer border, or, other parts of this. Like there's lots of different ways that you can construct it, but this is the one that really spoke to me. Of course, it's like the biggest one in the book because I'm all go big or go home. And so that will be it doesn't have a name. If you're familiar with a lot of like Doreen Jones books, she doesn't necessarily name her patterns, and especially given the way this one is kind of a mix and match. So I just call it Iznik. So that's going to be my I. And here's where I am. So again, because it's a book, it's a little bit awkward. The book itself is easy to read, but it doesn't hold open, and it's too heavy for me to put. Like I've got a magnetic board, and when I normally have a magazine, I have like a chip clips that I just clip it on there, and it doesn't work for this. It's too heavy to do that, so it just takes time. But it's not hard. In itself, it's very easy to read. So this is a 32 count Lugana. The color is Moon. I don't know who the dyer is. Again, I got this cut to size at Brick City. So I don't think I'll hit the goal this month because I do have quite a bit of stitching left to do it, but this will give me good motivation to make progress on it. And that's the same for the next one, which is N. So One Nation by Bygone Stitches. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. This is one that I just am. I'm sort of stuck in the field of stars, and it's just slow going. So again, I will not hit my goal on this because my goal was to finish all of the field of stars. Whoops, that's not what this was. But if it gets called 5 or 6 times or 4 or 5 times for Springo, each of those stars is a little bit under 100 stitches, so it means I can get a few more stars done and get some progress. This is a 36 count Picture This Plus Ale, which is actually the called for color. And when I started this, I spent a lot of time trying to find the right color. And I am using the DMC, and I think it was Ecru that she called for the equivalent, but that wasn't bright enough for me. So I have to look to see if I'm using white or B5200, but I wanted my stars to pop a little bit more. But I am for the blue, and then for the red, I will use the DMC conversion that she provides. And then for G, this was another whip go call. This is Ghostly Greetings. And I also want to hit the goal. And I can't remember if my goal is to do everything like at the top half up to the pumpkin or through the pumpkin. I have to look to see where I am. But I have a lot of good, and this is from an old issue of Cross Stitching Country Crafts. But you can see it must be including that pumpkin because I'm really close to hitting my goal on this. So there's a lot of back stitching still that I have to do. So I will focus first on the pumpkin to get all the cross stitches done, and then I will do that. This piece has a lot of Kreinik in it as well, and even like the purple Kreinik, it might be the same color of purple, but it's, as you know, Kreinik has different textures, and so we'll see when I get, and most of that is in the center part, so we'll see where I get with that, but I think this is really cute. And so glad I made get a chance to make some progress on this. I am not really a seasonal stitcher, so it doesn't bother me to pull this out in April. I know a lot of people like to do spring or Easter or whatever, or maybe prepping for the summer, but that's not me. I'm just like, yeah, I feel like working on it. This is a 16 count Ada. I had it in my stash when I started it, so I think I was also very happy to have a chance to use that Ada. Okay, so that is all of the stitching I have in my plans. My other plans that I still haven't 100% committed to it, but a friend of mine is I think she's calling it Easter Start Fest. And the idea is over the Easter weekend to start as many projects with 200 stitches in it. I don't know. So she's British. And so in the UK, the Easter holidays are like they get off Good Friday, then obviously the weekend, and then they also get off Monday for Easter Monday. In the US, as you know, everything, obviously Sundays, like the mail doesn't come, but it's not it certainly isn't a federal holiday, and a lot of other things are open on Good Friday. So doesn't have the same impact here, but I'm retired, so I can do whatever. So that is, I may do that. I think I'm going to see how I'm doing on things like Springo and my goals and all of that and see if I get to that. And I will take that opportunity to start, say, some smalls that I want to do for retreats, exchanges and retreats. And so I think that will be a good opportunity to start some of those smaller things. I probably will have another big start. I haven't figured out what that's going to be. I'm not going to spin my wheel because it's all going to be whenever I get to it, I'll figure it out. So got to have a little flexibility in my plans. So that is all. Oh, I do have some haul. That is all of my actual stitching. As I mentioned, I did place a market pre-order with Garan Stitchery, and they mailed it out very quickly. So one of the charts was Disagree that I showed you, but I got a few other charts, and so one of them was From Velvet to Linen from Kathy Barrick. So that's a pretty one. And then I got Samplers and Primitives, MT, the butterfly sampler. I'm not normally much of a sampler stitcher, but I have to say those little goats at the top really got me. I have a love-hate relationship with goats in the sense that when I was a kid, I went to a petting zoo and I'm feeding the goats and they head-butted me, and it's one of those images that is stuck in my head. Like, I'm not afraid of goats, but I have that image still from when I was like 3 or 4 in my head of like a goat. I shouldn't say head-butting me. He butted me with his head, probably like very gently in my shoulder or something as he was trying to get me to feed him more, but that has stuck with me. So I'm a little bit, it's sort of, something sort of sticks in your mind. Anyhow, I'm sort of going off way on a tangent. So the goats sort of got to me. And there's some other interesting things in there as well. These birds, let's see if I can get that, are quite interesting as well. And then my last one, which was my favorite one from Market, was the Blue Flower Baby Animals. This is just so cute. And I know I keep saying it, but I'm really excited because I'm going to a retreat at the end of May. And Jenny McGowan is going to be one of the designers there. I'm so excited to have a chance to meet her. Okay, so that is all of the cross stitching, if that's all you're here for. So I have a lot of reading as always, as I do. So the book I'm going to talk about this month is an older one. It's called Room from Emma Donoghue. And I wanted to, it was made into, I think this is from 2010, and it was made into a movie in 2015 starring Brie Larson. And it's based on inspired by a real event, which is, and I think it happened in Austria, but I could totally be wrong about where it happened. But it basically was about a man who kidnapped a woman and held her prisoner for years. And she had a child, and basically that she got out. And so that the characters are like this. This story is inspired by that situation, but the characters are not the people that this happened to. And this is set, I can't remember where, but somewhere in the US. And Emma Donoghue is an Irish author who lives in Canada. And like she's, I think, lived her whole adult life in Canada. Her husband, I think, is a professor. So she also has lived a little bit in France whenever they go on sabbatical. But anyhow, but this book is also written from the perspective of the child, who is like 5 years old. So and the mother has spent a lot of time, like, she's in this horrible situation, and she has spent a lot of time trying to like keep the terror of the situation away from the child. So, horrible things are happening, but because it's from the child's perspective, you don't necessarily get all of that. And I think that's the brilliance of the writing is, how absolutely horrible this is. And yet it's not graphic in a way that kind of situation could be. This is not meant to be like a thriller titillation type thing. It's, it's meant to be very sympathetic to the mother and the child. And highly recommend this. And part of the reason why I picked this as a library book, that's why it's all shiny. But part of the reason why I picked this up was my local independent bookstore, The Lynx, they are doing like first edition club. And I don't belong to that. I don't save a lot of my books. If I read them, unless I really, really want to keep them, I donate them. And that's why I get so much from the library anyhow. But, and you would think not going back there, but anyhow, Emma Donoghue was coming to speak at the Lynx, and I wanted to have a chance to see her. I've read other books by her, like Pull of the Stars. So I did it. Part of going to the event was you got then a signed copy and of her new book, as well as getting to hear her speak. And I love listening to writers talk. So that's why I wanted to go back and read some stuff from her that I hadn't read. And this one was, I was so happy I read this before the event. I think this is her most well-known book. And it was just great to hear her speak. What am I watching? Okay, I paused it there. I wanted to make sure I was getting the name right. And I wanted to recommend. So I watched, with my husband and I watched a limited series, Long Bright River, starring Amanda Seyfried. I believe it's on Hulu, but it might be on Apple Plus. And it is based on a novel from Liz Moore, and it's basically about a cop in Philadelphia who is a beat cop in the part of Philadelphia where she grew up, and it's one that has fallen on harder times. And it basically starts, and there's a woman who is found dead. They presume that she has overdosed, but you kind of know it's not. It's really going to be more than that. You find, you know very quickly that probably she was murdered, and they're starting to realize that a number of these women have died, and so they're investigating. And she's got a sister who is missing as well, and she thinks maybe her sister has been killed. Her sister is also a drug addict, and so just lots of sort of complicated issues going. Amanda Seyfried, I think, is brilliant, and she does a great job, and she is the kind of actor these days who only does what interests her. She's had enough success that she doesn't have to sort of go after the pretty girl roles, and so she does a great job in this, and it's a sort of compelling story. So highly recommend Long Bright River. Okay, going into sort of what's going on in my life. So I mentioned that I went to the book signing at the Lynx, and I'm probably going to go to another book signing next month. Again, I'm excited to have a chance to listen to the author. I like the books, but like getting the book and the signed book, but it's not sort of the motivation. Like I'm just not going to sign up for it and get it in the mail. But I Also, I think, as I've mentioned in the videos, I am an avid volunteer for my local Friends of the Library. And so I do what they call the general sorting, which is when people make donations, sort of saying, okay, this book needs to go to mystery, this book needs to go to science fiction, this book needs to go to sociology. We take books that cover everything, and basically things that don't get saved are either things that there's so many copies that we know we can't sell, or people sometimes think that we take any book, but we're in Florida, and if you store your books in a garage for 20 years and there's mold and cockroach poop and water damage and all of that, do you want to pick up a book like that and read it? I don't. So we sort of have to unfortunately throw out some things at times, but we do try and keep as much as possible. And even if things are in good condition, but there's just so many copies, then we look at, say, can we donate them to other charities like free libraries or other things that can use them? But that's a separate thing. We really do keep most of the books. And I co-manage the romance section, which it's just sort of expanding constantly. Just a lot of romance books out right now, and we have more Danielle Steele, and I thought one could ever write. But there you go. I just feel like every time I turn around and look at the next things that have been brought back to my section, I'm like, it's more Danielle Steele. But a lot of people love her, and so all the money goes into literacy programs in my county. And so it's a great cause. And our next sale is at the end of April. So I have to, I'll be spending a lot of time in April sort of doing the final prep for that, as well as working at the sale. So I'm looking forward to doing all of that. I will say that I don't know when I'm going to do my next video as a result of all of that, because normally I'm trying to film at the end of the month or the very beginning of the next month. And because that sale is April 26th through the 30th, it's basically I go in the morning and I'll come back late afternoon, but I'm hot, I'm sweaty. I don't want to be getting in front of a camera. Not that you guys can smell me, but don't want to be, and whatever. I want to come home, put my feet up and stitch and not have to try and organize for a Flosstube. So I may either come back before the sale, so earlier than usual, or it may not be until May. The only reason why I'm a little bit hesitant is May. Also, I've got a lot going on. I've got, I have a retreat. My husband is going somewhere, and then we have something else that's going to take up a lot of time. So I'm just not sure in May how much, again, am I going to be at a time where when I have free time, I just want to put up my feet and stitch, or turn on Flosstube and stitch. So we'll see. Anyhow, I'm just sort of babbling at this point. So if you've made it this long, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you late April, early May. But if it's pushed off till June, that may happen too. So take care. Happy stitching. Bye-bye.